In the public space, every nation and state must decide how to allocate finite resources to provide for its citizens. We call this politics. There are two particular aspects to this exercise of government that keep our national, state, and civic representatives occupied: ideology and priorities. What should the state be responsible for, and how far should it intervene? Beyond these questions lie the philosophical debates about the value and purpose of human life, from the unborn child through to our oldest citizens. These debates may be characterized by moral, spiritual, philosophical, and economic dimensions, but ultimately they are expressed in terms of relative priorities and real-life budgets that determine the wage levels and status of differing sectors of service providers. Who is most deserving and who gets what? The military, our police, hospitals, garbage disposal, parks and forestry, etc. It's evident from elections and continuing political activity that administrations and those who support them can and do hold very different views on these matters. Political parties commit resource to public services based on their beliefs. The 54 articles comprising the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child enshrine children's rights to both a minimum standard of living and to education. Further, it defines goals for this education. Signatories of this convention are thus committed to both the provision of education for their children and to ensure that they meet the goals laid out in it. What the convention does not touch on is any guidance on the political or practical arrangements for education and what priorities and funding nations should give to the different stages of development from birth through to 18 years of age, the convention definition of the end of childhood. When it comes to early childhood care and education, arrangements for provision vary wildly across the world. In terms of the balance of state versus private provision, the ages of children included, the rationale and the priority, status and financial commitment to it. Politicians may see children as potential units of production, requiring the infilling of knowledge and skills as soon as possible to equip them to contribute to the economy. Or they may see ECE as a childcare expedient, somewhere for children to go whilst their parents contribute to the economy. Our experience in England has been both of these. In recent elections, we've seen parties outbidding one another with offers of more free childcare to the electorate. At the same time, we see pressure for more formalised teaching and the reduction of children to their data representation in the form of test scores, with a narrow, exclusive focus on numeracy and literacy. ECE in England is provided to children aged under 5 years, mainly through small, independent and voluntary organisations who contract with their local government to offer 15 or 30 hours of funded childcare per week for up to 38 weeks a year to eligible families of children aged 2 to 4 years. These hours are promoted to families as free, but they are not free. Despite ongoing lobbying, plentiful evidence, and the closure of over 500 childcare providers every month across the country, rates for government-funded hours have remained at unsustainable levels for these small businesses across several years, whilst costs continue to rise. And for many of us, our legislation makes it very difficult for us to charge any additional fees to make up for the shortfall. Families from areas of disadvantage are not able to afford additional fees anyway. Who then pays for our staff, food, energy bills, consumable items, maintenance and insurance? As of the start of 2020, we face the prospect of a statutory increase in our wage bills of at least 6%, whilst the government has committed a 1% increase in funding rates from this April. For most providers, wages represent over 70% of costs. Hopefully, it is clear that the maths doesn't work. High quality early childhood care and education costs. If as a nation we are to meet our commitments to the UNCRC, if we understood the economic case for investment in children's earliest years, and if we really valued children and those who educate them, we would commit sufficient resource to ensure we paid what it actually costs us to do so. As one of the top economies of the world, and as an example to other countries of high quality ECE, it is to our shame that we face such a bleak and uncertain future for our providers. You can be assured that we are uniting and mobilising across our country to appeal to our government before it is too late. We owe it to our children, their families, and our wonderful, skilled and committed workforce who make a difference to their lives to ensure we are able to continue our vocation. At a time when we should be focusing on the quality of the care and education we provide, it is disheartening that we are desperately seeking ways to survive past April.